Commander Zextar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction as he watched the human colony on Kepler 442b burn. The primitive structures crumbled under the focused plasma bombardment from his fleet of 12 Vorthak destroyers. Smoke rose from what the humans called New Sacramento, and the pathetic distress signals had finally stopped transmitting. "Too easy," Zextar hissed to his second-in-command, Officer Krelnos. The intelligence reports were correct. These humans are soft, weak creatures who barely understand real warfare. Krelnos nodded his scaled head. Their ships fled at the first sight of our fleet. Cowards, every one of them. The High Command will be pleased that we've eliminated another human outpost so efficiently. The Vorthak Empire had been expanding across this sector for 3 centuries. They were apex predators from a high-gravity world, standing 9 feet tall with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws. Their technology was advanced, their military disciplined, and their appetite for conquest endless. When they encountered the humans spreading across nearby systems, they saw them as nothing more than soft-skinned vermin to be exterminated. The humans had established several small colonies in this region over the past 50 years. Each settlement was lightly defended, populated mostly by civilians trying to build new lives on distant worlds. They seemed to lack the warrior culture that made a species truly dangerous. Their soldiers were small, weak, and died easily. Zextar had personally led raids on 3 other human colonies in the past year. Each time the pattern was the same. A few human ships would arrive, engage his forces briefly, then retreat when they realized they were outgunned. The colonies would surrender or be destroyed. Simple, clean, efficient. "Sir," Communications Officer Thekrin called out from his station. "We're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld. It's addressed to the commander of our fleet." Zextar's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Put it through. Let's hear them beg for mercy." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human in a dark military uniform. The creature was pale and small, with no visible natural weapons or armor. Its hair was gray, and its eyes were an unusual blue color. Everything about it screamed weakness to Zextar's predatory instincts. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said in a calm, steady voice. "You have attacked our colony on Kepler 442b. This is your only warning. Withdraw from our space immediately or face the consequences." Zextar burst into a series of chittering laughs. His bridge crew joined in, their amusement echoing through the command center. The humans' words were so absurd, so completely divorced from reality that they could barely contain themselves. "Consequences?" Zextar wheezed, wiping moisture from his compound eyes. "Little human, do you see the burning ruins of your settlement below? Do you understand what happened to your people? We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 47 different species. Your pathetic race will be number 48. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. Her blue eyes remained fixed on the camera with an intensity that was almost unsettling. "You attacked civilians, families, children. You crossed a line that should never be crossed." "We crossed nothing but empty space to reach your weak colony," Zextar snarled. "Your people died because they were inferior, because they lacked the strength to defend themselves. This is how the universe works, human. The strong take what they want from the weak." "I see," Chen said quietly. "You believe we're weak because our colonists didn't fight back effectively. You think our evacuation ships ran away out of cowardice. You've made a fundamental error in understanding humanity, Commander Zextar." The fact that she knew his name gave Zextar a moment of pause, but he quickly dismissed it. Human intelligence gathering was probably more advanced than he'd given them credit for. But it didn't matter. The only error was yours, in thinking you could expand into our territory without consequences, he replied. "Your species will learn to serve the Empire or it will be eliminated." Chen nodded slowly. "Those evacuation ships you saw retreating? They weren't running away out of fear, Commander. They were following protocol. When a human colony is attacked, the first priority is always civilian evacuation. Always. We save our people first, then we respond." "Respond?" Krelnos laughed from his position beside Zextar. "With what? More of your tiny ships? Your weak weapons? You attacked New Sacramento 6 hours ago," Chen continued, ignoring the interruption. "In that time, those evacuation ships have reached safe harbor. Every civilian has been accounted for. Every family has been saved. Now that our people are safe, Commander, now we respond." Something in her tone made Zextar's scales prickle with unease. There was no fear in the human's voice, no desperation, just a cold certainty that he found deeply disturbing. "You have 1 minute to withdraw your forces and leave our space," Chen said. "After that, we will demonstrate exactly why attacking human civilians is the worst mistake your species has ever made." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in an odd silence. Zextar found himself staring at the blank screen, trying to process what had just happened. The human had spoken to him like he was the one in danger, like his massive fleet was somehow at risk from their pathetic species. "Sir?" Thekrin called nervously. "What are your orders?" Zextar shook off his momentary confusion. These humans were clearly delusional if they thought they could threaten the Vorthak Empire. Perhaps their propaganda had convinced them they were stronger than they actually were. It wouldn't be the first time he'd encountered such foolishness. "Continue the bombardment," he ordered. "Reduce what's left of their colony to ash, and prepare a message for the High Command. Tell them we'll need additional forces to complete the conquest of human space. These creatures may be more troublesome than anticipated." As his ships resumed their attack on the burning colony below, Zextar couldn't shake the memory of Admiral Chen's blue eyes. There had been something in them, something he'd never seen before in the faces of conquered species. Not fear, not desperation, but something far more dangerous. He just couldn't figure out what it was. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the UEDF headquarters, watching the holographic display that showed the Kepler system. Red indicators marked the positions of Zextar's fleet, still orbiting the smoldering remains of New Sacramento. Around her, the most senior military officers in human space worked with quiet efficiency, coordinating a response that had been planned for decades. "Evacuation complete," reported General Marcus Webb, head of Colonial Defense. "All 2.3 million civilians from New Sacramento are accounted for. The emergency protocols worked exactly as designed." Chen nodded without taking her eyes off the display. Those protocols had been developed after humanity's first contact with hostile aliens 70 years ago. Every human colony had detailed evacuation plans, hidden shelters and escape routes that could move entire populations to safety within hours. What looked like cowardice to species like the Vorthak was actually the result of careful planning and preparation. "Fleet status?" Chen asked. Admiral James Rodriguez stepped forward, his weathered face grim. "The Third Fleet is already moving toward Kepler 442. ETA 4 hours. The Seventh Fleet is departing Luna Base as we speak. Combined strength, 47 ships, including 6 dreadnoughts." "Sir," interrupted Captain Lisa Zhang from the intelligence station. "We're receiving real-time data from the observation satellites around New Sacramento. The enemy fleet consists of 12 ships, destroyer class by our measurements. Their weapons appear to be standard plasma cannons, effective but not particularly advanced." Chen finally turned away from the display. "And their defensive capabilities?" "Kinetic barriers and ablative armor," Zhang continued. "Tough by most standards, but nothing our targeting systems can't handle. They're using predictable combat formations, and their communication patterns suggest a rigid command structure." The Admiral walked to another holographic table that showed a broader view of human space. Hundreds of green dots represented Earth Defense Force vessels, spread across dozens of systems. Most other species saw this as evidence of human weakness, their forces scattered and divided. They didn't understand the true nature of humanity's military doctrine. "General Webb," Chen said, "initiate Protocol 7 across all frontier colonies. I want every civilian population ready for immediate evacuation if needed." "Already in progress, sir." "Should I also activate the reserve fleets?" Chen paused, considering. The reserve fleets were humanity's secret weapon. Hundreds of ships disguised as cargo haulers, research vessels, and civilian transports. Each one was equipped with military-grade systems and crewed by experienced veterans posing as merchant spacers. To outside observers, they were invisible. Not yet, she decided. Let's see how the Vorthak respond to a conventional engagement first. Dr. Elizabeth Hawkins, the chief xenobiologist, looked up from her analysis station. "Admiral, I've been reviewing everything we know about Vorthak psychology. They're apex predators from a high-gravity world. Their entire culture is built around dominance through strength. They literally cannot comprehend the idea that a species might be stronger than them without constantly displaying that strength. Which explains why they see our defensive posture as weakness," Chen mused. "They expect strong species to be constantly aggressive, always showing off their power." "Exactly. From their perspective, Our focus on protecting civilians instead of immediately retaliating makes us look pathetic. They have no cultural framework for understanding strategic patience. Admiral Rodriguez pulled up tactical data on his personal display. That gives us a significant advantage. They'll be expecting desperate attacks and panicked responses. Instead, they're about to face coordinated military action backed by the full resources of human space. Chen walked back to the main display, watching the red dots of the Vorthak fleet. For 40 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not specifically for the Vorthak. They hadn't even made contact until recently, but for the inevitable encounter with a truly hostile alien species. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Humans had learned that lesson early, when the hegemony of Keth had attempted to subjugate Earth in 2157. That first alien war had been brutal and costly, but it had taught humanity valuable lessons about survival among the stars. Never again would they be caught unprepared. Ma'am, called Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. We're receiving updates from our deep space monitoring network. 3 more Vorthak fleets have been detected heading toward our frontier colonies. It looks like they're planning a coordinated assault. Force strength and destinations. Fleet Alpha, 15 ships heading for New Zurich. Fleet Beta, 18 ships targeting the Arcturus mining station. Fleet Gamma, 21 ships, course set for the agricultural colonies in the Centauri system. Chen felt a cold smile cross her lips. The Vorthak thought they were being clever, attacking multiple targets to divide human forces. They had no idea what they were walking into. General Webb, update Protocol 7 to full activation. Dr. Hawkins, I need psychological profiles on Vorthak command structure transmitted to all fleet commanders. Admiral Rodriguez, bring the reserve fleets to Amber Alert status. What about the Kepler situation? Rodriguez asked. Chen turned back to the tactical display. The Third Fleet's ships were now visible as green dots approaching the edge of the system. Captain Maria Santos commanded that fleet, and she was one of the finest tactical officers in the Defense Force. Captain Santos has her orders, Chen said. The Vorthak commander refused our warning. Now he gets to learn what happens when you attack human families. On the display, new contacts began appearing at the edge of the Kepler system. The Third Fleet was dropping out of hyperspace with mathematical precision, their ships taking formation with the fluid grace of long practice. To human eyes, it was a thing of beauty, 30 vessels moving as one, their approach calculated to maximize tactical advantage. The Vorthak would see it differently. To them, it would look like a desperate attempt by an inferior species to challenge their obvious superiority. They would be confident in their ability to destroy these ships just as easily as they had destroyed the civilian colony. Admiral, Dr. Hawkins said quietly, there's something else you should know about Vorthak psychology. When they encounter unexpected resistance, their first instinct is to escalate. They'll throw more forces at the problem until they overwhelm it through sheer numbers. Good, Chen replied. Let them escalate. The more forces they commit, the more complete their defeat will be. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station with surprise. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Vorthak commander. He's laughing. Says he's amused that we sent such a small force to challenge him. Chen nodded to the communication officer. Put him through. The holographic display shifted to show Commander Zextar's alien features, his mandibles clicking with what was clearly amusement. Behind him, the bridge of his destroyer buzzed with activity. So, Zextar hissed, the humans have finally decided to fight. 30 ships against 12. You think numbers will save you, but you are wrong. Vorthak warriors are worth 10 of your kind. Commander, Chen said calmly, this is your final opportunity to withdraw. Leave our space now and we'll consider this incident closed. Withdraw? Zextar's laughter became more intense. Human, we have burned your colony to ash. We have killed your people, and now you offer us mercy? Your weakness is beyond comprehension. I see, Chen replied. Captain Santos, you are clear to engage. Show the commander what human weakness looks like. The transmission ended and Chen turned to her staff. Around her, the most advanced military command center in human space hummed with quiet efficiency. Every officer present understood the significance of this moment. For the first time since the Keth War, humanity was going to reveal its true capabilities to a hostile alien species. All stations, condition red, Chen announced. The dragon is awake and it's time to remind the galaxy why you don't attack human children. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UEDF Retribution, her flagship leading the Third Fleet into the Kepler system. The massive dreadnought was a work of art disguised as a weapon of war, sleek lines hiding devastating firepower, elegant design concealing systems that represented the pinnacle of human military engineering. Contact established with enemy fleet, reported Lieutenant Commander Chen at the tactical station. 12 Vorthak destroyers in high orbit around Kepler 442b. They're maintaining aggressive formation, weapons charged, and ready. Santos studied the holographic display showing both fleets. The Vorthak ships were impressive by most standards. 900 meters of armored Predator, bristling with plasma weapons and kinetic guns. But she could see their weaknesses immediately. Predictable spacing, outdated point defense systems, and most importantly, they were positioned exactly where her targeting computers expected them to be. "Commander Williams," she called to her second-in-command. "What does our analysis tell us about their tactical doctrine?" "Straightforward frontal assault, sir," Williams replied. "They rely on superior firepower and armor to overwhelm opponents through direct engagement. Their formation suggests they expect us to charge them head-on so they can concentrate fire on our lead ships." Santos nodded. It was exactly what most species would do. Close distance quickly and try to bring maximum firepower to bear before the enemy could respond effectively. The Vorthak had probably won dozens of battles using this same approach against opponents who fought the way they expected. They were about to learn that humans didn't fight the way anyone expected. "Weapons status?" Santos asked. "All systems green, sir. Railguns charged and ready. Missile tubes loaded with hunter killers. Point defense grid active. The fleet reports ready for engagement." On the main screen, Commander Zextar's image appeared, transmitted from his flagship. The alien commander's mandibles were spread in what Santos recognized as a threatening display. "Human vessels," Zextar announced. "You are outgunned and outclassed. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick. Continue this foolishness, and we will ensure your suffering matches that of the colonists below." Santos stepped forward, her uniform immaculate, her expression calm. "Commander Zextar, I am Captain Maria Santos of the United Earth Defense Force. You have committed an act of war against humanity by attacking our civilians. This is your final opportunity to surrender." Zextar's laughter was a harsh, chittering sound. "Surrender to you? Look at your ships, human. They are barely half the size of our destroyers. Your weapons are primitive projectile launchers while we wield the power of plasma itself. What could you possibly do to threaten us?" "You're about to find out," Santos replied. "All ships implement pattern Delta 7. Weapons free." The transmission ended and the bridge of the Retribution became a symphony of controlled activity. Officers called out status reports while targeting systems locked onto enemy vessels with mathematical precision. This was what the Third Fleet had trained for: coordinated engagement against a numerically inferior but individually powerful enemy force. "Fleet executing Delta 7, Williams reported. All ships moving to assigned positions. On the tactical display, the 30 ships of the Third Fleet began to spread out in a complex three-dimensional pattern that would have been impossible without their advanced coordination systems. To the Vorthak, it probably looked like confusion or panic. In reality, every ship was moving to a precisely calculated position that would maximize their combined firepower while minimizing the enemy's ability to concentrate their own weapons. "Enemy. Fleet moving to intercept," the tactical officer called out. "They're maintaining formation and accelerating directly toward our center ships." Santos smiled grimly. Just like the simulations predicted. Initiate Phase 1. The human ship suddenly changed course, the apparent center formation dissolving as vessels peeled away in seemingly random directions. What had looked like a standard military formation revealed itself to be something far more sophisticated. A fluid, adaptive network of independent units that could coordinate their actions in real time. "Sir," called the communications officer, picking up transmissions from the enemy fleet. They seemed confused, Santos could imagine. The Vorthak had probably never encountered an enemy that didn't fight according to their expectations. Most species developed military doctrine based on their own psychology and cultural biases. The Vorthak, as apex predators, expected direct confrontation and shows of strength. Humans had learned to fight differently, not because they were weak, but because they were smart. "Range to target 2 million kilometers in closing," Williams announced. Enemy weapons will be in effective range in 30 seconds. Launch Phase 1 missiles, Santos ordered. Throughout the fleet, missile tubes opened and unleashed their deadly cargo. But these weren't the primitive explosives that most species used. These were hunter-killer smart missiles, each one equipped with advanced AI targeting systems and adaptive learning protocols. They could change course mid-flight, coordinate their attacks with other missiles, and adapt their approach based on enemy defensive measures. Missiles away. Time to target 45 seconds. On the tactical display, hundreds of small dots raced toward the Vorthak fleet. The enemy ships immediately began defensive maneuvers, their point defense systems coming online to intercept the incoming projectiles. Enemy engaging our missiles with plasma screens, the tactical officer reported. They're destroying approximately 60% of the incoming warheads. It was an impressive defensive response, but it was exactly what Santos had expected. The first wave of missiles wasn't intended to cause major damage. It was designed to reveal the enemy's defensive capabilities and force them to expend their anti-missile ordnance. Phase 2, Santos commanded. The second wave of missiles launched while the Vorthak were still dealing with the first. But this time the human ships also opened fire with their primary weapons, railguns that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The results were immediate and devastating. The Vorthak point defense systems, designed to handle conventional missiles and plasma bolts, were completely unprepared for kinetic projectiles moving at such incredible velocities. The first railgun rounds punched through their shields like they weren't there, tearing massive holes in the armored hulls of 3 destroyers. Direct hits on targets Alpha 3, Alpha 7 and Alpha 9, Williams called out. Alpha 7 is venting atmosphere. Alpha 9 has lost main power. On the main screen they could see the enemy fleet's formation beginning to break apart, as commanders realized their defenses were useless against human weapons. The elegant coordination that had served them so well against other species became a liability, as damaged ships disrupted their attack pattern. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we're receiving transmissions from the enemy fleet. They're trying to reorganize their formation." Santos watched as the Vorthak ships attempted to regroup. Their commander was probably struggling to understand how his supposedly superior vessels were being outfought by smaller human ships. The psychological impact would be almost as devastating as the physical damage. Enemy fleet attempting to close distance, Tactical reported. "They're abandoning their formation and charging directly at us." "Predictable," Santos murmured. When faced with unexpected tactics, apex predators typically responded with increased aggression. "All ships execute Pattern Echo 4. Let's show them what happens when you bring claws to a gunfight." The human ships suddenly accelerated, but instead of meeting the enemy charge head-on, they flowed around the Vorthak formation like water around rocks. The alien ships, committed to their aggressive approach, found themselves unable to maintain targeting locks as human vessels struck from unexpected angles. "Multiple hits across the enemy fleet," Williams reported with satisfaction. "Their armor is impressive, but it can't stop concentrated railgun fire. We've disabled 6 of their 12 ships and the remainder are taking heavy damage." Santos studied the tactical display. The engagement had lasted less than 10 minutes, and the supposedly superior Vorthak fleet was already broken. Their ships were individually powerful, but they fought like individual predators rather than a coordinated military force. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "Commander Zextar is requesting communication." "Put him through." The alien's image appeared on screen, but the confident predator from earlier was gone. Zextar's compound eyes showed something Santos had never seen from a Vorthak before: fear. What are you?" he whispered. "Your ships are smaller, your weapons primitive. How are you doing this?" Santos regarded him with calm professionalism. "Commander, you made the mistake of attacking human families. You thought we were weak because we chose to save lives rather than seek immediate revenge. That was your first error. Your second error was assuming that size and individual firepower determine victory in space combat." "This is impossible," Zextar snarled, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "No species fights like this. No one coordinates their ships with such precision." "You're right," Santos agreed. "Most species fight like animals. They rely on instinct, aggression, and individual superiority." Admiral Chen watched the tactical display in the UEDF command center. as Captain Santos finished her engagement with Zextar's fleet. 6 Vorthak ships drifted powerless in space, their hulls breached and life support failing. The remaining vessels had managed to retreat to the outer system, but they were badly damaged and clearly demoralized. "Excellent work by the Third Fleet," General Webb commented. "Clean, efficient, and exactly by the book." Chen nodded, but her expression remained serious. "The real test is just beginning, General." Captain Santos engaged a single Vorthak fleet that wasn't expecting human tactical doctrine. "Our intelligence indicates the enemy has reinforcements coming, and they won't make the same mistakes twice." As if summoned by her words, Lieutenant Torres looked up from his communication station. "Admiral, we're receiving priority alerts from our deep space monitoring network. The 3 additional Vorthak fleets have accelerated their approach. New Zurich reports enemy contact in 6 hours. Arcturus mining station and the Centauri colonies will be under attack within 8 hours. Dr. Hawkins consulted her xenopsychological analysis. This fits their pattern perfectly. When apex predators encounter unexpected resistance, they escalate dramatically. Commander Zextar's defeat will be seen as a fluke, something that can be overcome with more force. How much more force are we talking about? Admiral Rodriguez asked. Chen pulled up the strategic display showing all known Vorthak movements. Red arrows indicated enemy fleet positions and projected courses. The picture was sobering. Over 60 alien ships converging on human space from multiple directions. "Intelligence estimates they're committing everything they have in this sector," she said. "Fleet Alpha has grown to 22 ships. Fleet Beta is now 31 vessels. Fleet Gamma shows 43 contacts and is still growing as they pick up reinforcements." The room fell silent as the officers absorbed the numbers. Nearly 100 alien warships, each one larger and individually more powerful than human vessels. It was the kind of overwhelming force that would crush most civilizations. "Recommendations?" Chen asked. General Webb stepped forward. "We could evacuate the threatened colonies and fall back to more defensible positions. Fight a delaying action while we mobilize our full fleet strength. That would save lives in the short term," Rodriguez agreed. "But it would also give the Vorthak time to study our tactics and adapt. We'd lose the advantage of surprise." Chen turned to Dr. Hawkins. "Doctor, how would the Vorthak interpret a strategic withdrawal?" "As proof that their initial assessment was correct," Hawkins replied without hesitation. "They would see it as confirmation that humans are weak and only won the first engagement through luck or trickery. It would reinforce their belief that they can win through superior numbers." The Admiral walked to the holographic display, studying the enemy fleet positions. For 40 years, humanity had prepared for exactly this scenario. A major alien power committing significant forces to crush human expansion. All their planning, all their secret preparations had been leading to this moment. "Admiral," Captain Zhang said from the intelligence station, "we're receiving real-time updates from the colonies. All civilian evacuations are proceeding ahead of schedule. New Zurich will be clear in 4 hours. The mining station and agricultural colonies will complete evacuation within 6 hours." Chen smiled grimly. "Then it's time to show the Vorthak what happens when you mistake human mercy for weakness. Order all reserve fleets to active status. Initiate Protocol 9 across all sectors." The command center erupted into controlled activity as officers began implementing orders that would reveal humanity's true military capabilities for the first time since the Keth War. Protocol 9 was the activation of humanity's hidden assets, the merchant ships that were actually Q ships, the research vessels that carried military-grade weapons, the civilian transports that doubled as troop carriers. "Ma'am," Torres called out, his voice tinged with excitement. "The reserve fleets are acknowledging activation orders. Estimated force strength." "My God, Admiral, we're looking at over 300 vessels coming online." Rodriguez whistled low. "The Vorthak think they're facing a small frontier force. They have no idea what's about to hit them." Chen watched as the tactical display updated to show human assets across multiple systems. Green dots appeared in dozens of locations as ships dropped their civilian disguises and revealed their true nature. Cargo haulers shed their outer hulls to expose weapon batteries. Research vessels activated military-grade shields and targeting systems. Even some space stations revealed hidden defense platforms. "Sir," General Webb said quietly, "are we sure we want to reveal this much of our capability? Once the galaxy sees what we're truly capable of, we'll never have this level of surprise again." Chen considered the question. It was a valid concern. Humanity's greatest strategic advantage was that most species underestimated them. Once word spread about their true military strength, that advantage would be gone forever. The Vorthak attacked our families, General. They burned our colonies and killed our people. Then they had the arrogance to threaten us with extinction. She turned to face her staff, her blue eyes cold as stellar ice. Sometimes you have to accept strategic cost to send a message. Today we teach the galaxy that there are consequences for attacking human children. The holographic display chimed as new contacts appeared. Captain Santos was transmitting from the Kepler system, her image appearing on the main screen. Admiral, Santos reported. The surviving Vorthak ships are attempting to regroup at the system's edge. They're transmitting on all frequencies, apparently calling for reinforcements. Should we pursue and finish them? Negative, Captain. Let them run. Let them report what they've seen to their commanders. I want every Vorthak fleet commander to know exactly what happened to Zextar's forces. Santos nodded, understanding. Understood, sir. What are your orders regarding the incoming enemy fleets? Chen looked at the strategic display one more time. 3 massive Vorthak fleets, nearly 100 ships total, were converging on human space with the confidence of predators who believed they faced defenseless prey. They were about to encounter the full fury of humanity's war machine. Captain Santos, your fleet will join Admiral Harrison's 5th Fleet at New Zurich. Combined strength will be 57 ships. Your objective is to demonstrate advanced human capabilities while minimizing your own losses. Understood. And the other fleets? Admiral Kim will take the 2nd Fleet to Arcturus with 43 ships. Admiral Okafor will defend Centauri with the 4th Fleet, 61 vessels. Each engagement will showcase different aspects of our tactical doctrine. Dr. Hawkins looked up from her analysis. Admiral, this level of force deployment will give the Vorthak a comprehensive view of human military capabilities. They'll understand that we've been hiding our true strength. Good, Chen replied. I want them to understand exactly what they've awakened. I want them to lie awake at night wondering what other surprises humanity might have in store for them. Torres received another transmission and looked up with surprise. Ma'am, we're getting a priority message from the Vorthak High Command. It's addressed directly to you. Chen raised an eyebrow. Put it through. The screen flickered to reveal an enormous Vorthak, easily larger than any they had seen before. Ancient scars crisscrossed his armored hide, and his eyes burned with the wisdom of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. I am War Master Korthak, Supreme Commander of the Vorthak Empire's military forces. I have reviewed the reports from Commander Zextar's engagement. Your tactics were unexpected. However, you have made a grave error in opposing our expansion. Chen stepped forward, matching the alien's formal tone. War Master Korthak, I am Admiral Sarah Chen, Commanding Officer of the United Earth Defense Force. Your forces attacked our civilians without provocation. This cannot be allowed to stand. Korthak's mandibles spread in what might have been amusement. One victory does not make you warriors, human. Commander Zextar was overconfident and unprepared. I am sending 3 full fleets to correct his failures. Nearly 100 ships led by my finest commanders. Even if your tactics are superior, you cannot overcome such numerical superiority. War Master, Chen said calmly, you are making the same mistake your subordinate made. You assume you understand human capabilities based on limited observation. You believe we are defending ourselves with everything we have. Are you not? Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. We're just getting started. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Around her, the most senior officers in human space waited for orders that would determine the course of interstellar history. All fleets, execute assigned missions, Chen announced. Show the Vorthak what happens when you threaten humanity's children. It's time to remind the galaxy why humans earned their reputation as the most dangerous species in known space. War Master Korthak stood in the strategic command center of the Vorthak homeworld, staring at the holographic displays that showed his 3 fleets approaching human space. For the first time in his 3-century military career, he felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. The reports coming from his field commanders made no sense. Fleet Alpha, 22 of his finest ships, had engaged what appeared to be a modest human defense force at New Zurich. The initial engagement had gone exactly as expected. The human ships were outnumbered and outgunned. Victory should have been swift and decisive. Instead, Fleet Alpha had been destroyed, Not defeated, not damaged, not forced to retreat. Completely annihilated. 22 Vorthak destroyers reduced to expanding clouds of debris in less than 30 minutes. The few escape pods recovered by long-range scouts contained survivors who spoke of impossible things. Human ships that moved like schools of fish, weapons that fired projectiles faster than plasma bolts, and coordination that seemed almost telepathic. War Master, his aide, Sub-Commander Vexenil, approached cautiously. "We've received the final report from Fleet Alpha's engagement. The humans, they used some kind of coordinated swarm tactics. Our ships couldn't maintain target locks because the enemy vessels kept changing position and formation." Korthak's claws scraped against the metal of his command platform. "Show me the tactical recordings." The holographic display shifted to show the battle from the perspective of a Vorthak destroyer's sensors. Korthak watched in growing confusion as 57 human ships moved through space in patterns that defied military logic. They didn't maintain formation. They flowed like liquid, each vessel independent yet perfectly coordinated with every other ship. When the human fleet engaged, their tactics were unlike anything in the Vorthak military database. Instead of meeting force with force, they struck from multiple angles simultaneously. Their weapons, some kind of kinetic projectile system, punched through Vorthak shields and armor as if they weren't there. "This is impossible," Korthak growled. "No species coordinates this precisely in real-time combat. The communication delays alone should make such coordination impossible." "War Master," Vexenil said hesitantly, "our intelligence division has been analyzing human technological capabilities. They believe the humans have developed some form of quantum communication network that allows instantaneous coordination across their entire fleet." Korthak felt his scales prickle with unease. Quantum communication was theoretical for most species, requiring massive resources and incredibly advanced technology. If the humans had not only mastered it but miniaturized it for military use, their technological advancement was far beyond what anyone had suspected. What about Fleet Beta's engagement at the mining station? The tactical display shifted again, showing the remnants of another Vorthak fleet drifting in space. 31 ships had attacked what they believed was a lightly defended mining operation. Instead, they had encountered 43 human warships that seemed to appear from nowhere. The mining station itself was apparently a disguised fortress, Vexenil reported. When our forces approached, it revealed hidden weapon batteries and launch bays. But that wasn't the worst part. The humans had ships disguised as cargo haulers and research vessels throughout the system. When the battle began, they dropped their disguises and joined the engagement. Korthak studied the battle recordings with growing alarm. The human ships fought with a level of tactical sophistication that suggested decades of preparation for exactly this scenario. Their weapons were precisely calibrated to exploit Vorthak shield frequencies. Their formations were designed to maximize their advantages while minimizing their enemy's ability to concentrate fire. How many of our ships escaped? None, War Master. Fleet Beta was completely destroyed, just like Fleet Alpha. The command center fell silent except for the hum of computer systems. Around the chamber, Korthak's staff exchanged worried glances. The Vorthak Empire had not lost an entire fleet in over 2 centuries. Now they had lost 2 fleets in a single day. "What about Fleet Gamma?" Korthak asked, dreading the answer. Vexenil's posture drooped. Fleet Gamma engaged the human agricultural colonies in the Centauri system. 43 ships against what our scouts reported as minimal defenses. The engagement lasted 18 minutes. The holographic display showed the aftermath. Debris fields where Vorthak warships had once been, human vessels moving in perfect formation through the wreckage. The humans hadn't just won. They had achieved total victory without suffering significant losses of their own. "How is this possible?" Korthak whispered. "Our ships are larger, our weapons more powerful, our armor superior. How are these small human vessels destroying fleets that could conquer entire star systems?" His intelligence chief, Sub-Commander Thekral, stepped forward with a data pad. "War Master, we've completed our analysis of human military doctrine based on these engagements. The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered before. They prioritize coordination over individual ship strength, precision over raw firepower, and tactical flexibility over rigid formations." "But their ships are still smaller than ours," Korthak insisted. "Their weapons are primitive kinetic launchers, not advanced plasma systems." "That's what makes them so effective," Thekral explained. Our shields are designed to disperse energy weapons. Our armor is calibrated to absorb plasma impacts. But these kinetic projectiles, they travel at significant fractions of light speed and deliver all their energy as direct physical force. Our defenses are useless against them. Korthak felt his worldview crumbling. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 47 species by following a simple formula: find their weaknesses, exploit their fears, and overwhelm them with superior force. But the humans had turned that formula on its head. They had studied Vorthak tactics, identified their weaknesses, and developed weapons specifically designed to exploit them. "War Master," Vexnil said urgently, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chen of the human fleet." The holographic display shifted to show the human admiral, her blue eyes calm and steady, despite having just orchestrated the destruction of nearly 100 Vorthak warships. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute confidence. "War Master Korthak, by now you've received reports from your 3 fleets. I want to make something very clear to you. Those were not desperate last stands by cornered defenders. Those were carefully planned demonstrations of human military capabilities." Korthak's mandibles clicked involuntarily. "Demonstrations? Your empire made a fundamental error in judgment," Chen continued. "You saw our focus on protecting civilians as weakness. You interpreted our defensive posture as inability to fight. You assumed that because we didn't immediately retaliate against your attacks, we lacked the capability to do so." The Admiral gestured. And the display showed human fleet movements across multiple star systems. Hundreds of ships were revealed. Vessels that had been hiding in plain sight as merchants, researchers, and civilian transports. The scope of humanity's hidden military assets was staggering. "What you've encountered today represents less than 15% of our active military forces," Chen said. "We have been preparing for a confrontation like this for 40 years. Every ship destroyed, every weapon system analyzed, every tactical doctrine studied. We know exactly how to fight species like yours." Korthak felt something cold settle in his chest. The humans had been planning for war with the Vorthak Empire before the Vorthak had even discovered human space. They had studied his people's psychology, analyzed their technology, and developed countermeasures for every advantage the Empire possessed. "You have a choice, War Master," Chen continued. "You can continue this conflict and discover exactly how extensive human military capabilities truly are. Or you can withdraw your forces from our space and never return. Those are your only options. And if we choose to fight?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made Korthak's scales stand on end. "Then you will learn why every other species in this galaxy has decided that humanity is too dangerous to threaten." The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthak command center in stunned silence. Korthak stared at the tactical displays showing the positions of human fleets across known space. What he had thought was a small frontier defense force was revealed to be a vast military network, hidden in plain sight and ready for immediate deployment. "War Master," Thekral said quietly, "our psychological analysis of human behavior suggests they are not bluffing. Their species has a documented history of total warfare when they perceive existential threats. If we continue this conflict, we will face the extinction of our empire," Korthak finished. For the first time in his life, the great War Master of the Vorthak understood true fear. Not fear of death in battle, that was honorable and expected, but fear of having led his people against an enemy that was so far beyond their capabilities that resistance was meaningless. He looked around at his staff, seeing his own realization reflected in their expressions. The Vorthak Empire, conqueror of 47 worlds, had finally encountered a species they could not defeat. The question now was whether they were wise enough to admit it before humanity decided to demonstrate exactly why the galaxy feared them. Admiral Chen stood before the massive holographic display in the UEDF command center, watching as real-time intelligence updates painted a picture of the Vorthak Empire's growing panic. Their communication networks were buzzing with frantic messages as commanders across their territory tried to understand what had happened to 3 entire fleets. "Admiral," Lieutenant Torres reported, "we're intercepting massive data bursts from Vorthak space. They're sharing tactical recordings of our engagements with every military installation in their empire." General Webb looked up from his analysis station. "That's actually working in our favor. The more their commanders see of our capabilities, the more they'll understand the futility of continued resistance." Dr. Hawkins studied the xenopsychological profile she had been updating throughout the conflict. This behavior is consistent with their hierarchical nature. When apex predators encounter a superior force, their first instinct is to warn the pack. They're essentially admitting that humans represent an existential threat to their empire. Chen nodded, but her expression remained focused. The question is whether War Master Korthak will accept reality or double down on aggression. Dr. Hawkins, what does your analysis suggest? Korthak is old and experienced enough to recognize when he's outmatched, Hawkins replied. But he's also a product of Vorthak military culture. Admitting defeat without attempting resistance goes against everything his species believes about strength and honor. Admiral Rodriguez joined the group around the central display. Our fleet commanders are requesting permission to pursue the remaining Vorthak forces. Captain Santos reports that her sensors are detecting scattered enemy ships retreating toward their border systems. Chen considered the request. The temptation to press their advantage was understandable, but she had broader strategic goals than simply winning battles. Negative, she decided. Let them retreat. I want Korthak to have time to fully comprehend what he's facing before he makes his final decision. Ma'am, Captain Zhang called from the intelligence station. We're detecting massive movement throughout Vorthak space. It looks like they're mobilizing their entire military. Shipyards are working around the clock. Reserve fleets are being activated, and they've issued a general call to arms across their empire. The holographic display shifted to show the Vorthak Empire's territory, dotted with red indicators representing military assets. The scale was impressive. Hundreds of ships, dozens of fortified worlds, industrial capacity that had been built over 3 centuries of conquest. They're preparing for total war, Webb observed. Everything they have concentrated against us. Chen studied the enemy force deployment with professional interest. How long before they can bring their full strength to bear? Intelligence estimates 6 weeks for complete mobilization, Zhang replied. But they could launch preliminary strikes with available forces within 2 weeks. Dr. Hawkins frowned at her datapad. Admiral, this level of mobilization suggests they've chosen escalation over surrender. Korthak may be gambling that sheer numbers can overcome our technological advantages. Chen walked closer to the holographic display, examining the enemy positions. The Vorthak were making a fundamental error in strategic thinking, but she needed to make sure they understood their mistake before it led to unnecessary casualties. Open a channel to the Vorthak High Command, she ordered. I want to speak directly with War Master Korthak. Within minutes, the display showed Korthak's image, transmitted from the Vorthak homeworld. The alien commander looked exhausted, his usually pristine armor showing signs of neglect. Behind him, the Vorthak command center buzzed with desperate activity. Admiral Chen, Korthak said, his voice carefully controlled. You have demonstrated impressive tactical capabilities, but numbers still matter in warfare. The Vorthak Empire commands resources across 12 star systems. We can field over 800 warships. Do you truly believe your tricks will work against such overwhelming force? Chen regarded him calmly. War Master, may I show you something? Without waiting for permission, she gestured to her communication officer. The display split to show a new image. A star system that Korthak didn't recognize, filled with more ships than he had ever seen in one place. This is the Sol system, birthplace of humanity, Chen explained. What you're seeing is our home fleet, the forces assigned to defend Earth itself. 600 ships, including 47 dreadnoughts and 12 super dreadnoughts. Korthak's mandibles clicked involuntarily. The ships in the image were massive, easily twice the size of Vorthak destroyers, and their design suggested technology far more advanced than anything his species possessed. But that's not what I wanted to show you, Chen continued. The image shifted to show another system, then another, each one filled with human military assets. These are our sector fleets, the forces assigned to defend our colonial regions. Each one is equipped with ships like those that destroyed your forces. The alien commander's compound eyes widened as the scope of human military power became clear. System after system appeared on the display, each one showing substantial defensive fleets. The total number of ships was staggering, easily 3 times the size of the Vorthak Empire's entire military. How is this possible? Korthak whispered. Our intelligence indicated that humanity was a small, developing species with limited industrial capacity. Your intelligence was based on what we allowed you to see, Chen replied. Humans learned long ago that it's better to be underestimated than feared. We've been building this military infrastructure for 40 years, hidden in plain sight across dozens of star systems. She gestured again, and the display showed human industrial capacity, massive shipyards orbiting uninhabited worlds, automated mining operations on asteroids, manufacturing facilities that dwarfed anything in Vorthak space. War Master, your empire conquered 47 species because they were unprepared for your aggression. They fought you with whatever forces they happened to have when you attacked. We've been preparing specifically for encounters with hostile apex predator species since our first contact with alien life. Korthak stared at the evidence of humanity's true capabilities, his worldview collapsing as he realized the magnitude of his miscalculation. You've been planning for war with us before we even knew you existed. Not war with you specifically, Chen clarified. War with species like you. Aggressive, expansion-minded civilizations that view diplomacy as weakness and conquest as natural law. We studied 47 different species' tactical doctrines when we learned of your conquests. Every engagement you've ever fought has been analyzed and cataloged. The Admiral walked closer to the camera, her blue eyes carrying absolute conviction. War Master, I'm going to be very clear with you. If you proceed with your planned assault on human space, you will not be facing a desperate defensive action by an outmatched enemy. You will be attacking the most technologically advanced and militarily prepared species in known space. She paused to let that sink in before continuing. Your 800 ships will face over 2,000 human vessels, supported by planetary defense networks, orbital fortifications, and weapons systems that your empire cannot counter. It will not be a war, War Master. It will be an extermination. Korthak's breathing became labored as he processed the information. Around him, his staff members were clearly struggling. With the same realization, they had chosen to attack a species that was not only stronger than them, but had been specifically preparing for their attack for decades. What do you want from us? He asked finally. Complete withdrawal from human space, Chen replied without hesitation. Formal recognition of our territorial boundaries, and reparations for the civilians killed on New Sacramento. And if we agree to these terms, Chen's expression softened slightly, then this ends here. We have no interest in conquering your empire or destroying your people. We simply want to be left alone to develop our colonies in peace. Korthak looked around his command center, seeing his own defeat reflected in the faces of his officers. The great Vorthak Empire, terror of the galaxy, had finally encountered a species they could not defeat. I need time to discuss this with the High Council, he said quietly. You have 72 hours, Chen replied. After that, we will assume you have chosen war and respond accordingly. The transmission ended, leaving the human command center in tense silence. Around her, Chen's staff waited for orders that would determine whether humanity revealed the full scope of their military power to the galaxy. General Webb, Chen said finally, place all fleets on high alert. If Korthak chooses to attack, I want every human ship ready for immediate deployment. And if he chooses surrender? Chen looked at the display showing human fleet positions across dozens of star systems, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, hidden in plain sight and ready for war. Then the galaxy learns that attacking human children carries consequences that no empire can survive. She said quietly, either way, this is the last time any species will mistake human mercy for weakness. 3 months after the 72-hour deadline, Admiral Chen stood in the newly established human embassy on the Vorthak homeworld, watching through reinforced windows as construction crews worked to repair the damage from what historians would later call the 3-day war. War Master. Korthak had chosen poorly, against the advice of his senior staff and the pleading of his intelligence division. He had convinced the Vorthak High Council that human military strength was an elaborate bluff. 800 Vorthak ships had launched a massive coordinated assault on human space, expecting to crush the upstart species through overwhelming numbers. The war had lasted exactly 74 hours. Chen reviewed the after-action reports on her datapad, still amazed at the efficiency of human military operations. The First Battle of New Geneva had seen 200 Vorthak ships destroyed in 38 minutes. The Second Battle of Kepler 442 had lasted even less time. By the end of the second day, the Vorthak fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing toward their home system. On the third day, human forces had reached the Vorthak homeworld itself. "Admiral," Captain Santos approached, her uniform bearing new decorations earned during the brief but decisive conflict. "The surrender ceremony is ready to begin. War Master Korthak and the remaining members of the High Council are waiting in the main chamber." Chen nodded and made her way through the embassy corridors, past honor guards from a dozen different human fleets. The ceremony was being broadcast across the galaxy, a deliberate message to every species that might be watching. The main chamber had once been the Vorthak Empire's supreme military headquarters, where conquest plans had been drawn up for 47 different worlds. Now it served as the site of the most comprehensive surrender in galactic history. War Master Korthak stood at the center of the room, his once proud armor bearing the scars of battle. Around him, the surviving members of the Vorthak High Council waited in defeated silence. The alien commander who had once ruled an empire now looked like what he was, an old predator who had finally encountered something stronger than himself. "War Master," Chen said formally as she took her position across from him, "are you prepared to sign the surrender terms?" Korthak's compound eyes met hers, and she saw something she had never expected to see from a Vorthak: respect. Not fear, not hatred, but the grudging acknowledgement of a warrior who recognized superior force. "Admiral Chen," he replied, his voice carrying weary dignity, "the Vorthak Empire formally surrenders all military operations against human space. We accept your terms without reservation." The document he signed was comprehensive: complete withdrawal from human territory, reparations for civilian casualties, restriction of Vorthak military forces to defensive operations only. Most importantly, formal recognition of humanity as the dominant military power in this sector of the galaxy. But Chen had insisted on one additional clause. "War Master," she said as he finished signing, "there is one more matter we need to discuss. The 47 species your empire conquered over the past 3 centuries. Korthak's mandibles clicked nervously. "What about them?" "They will be granted independence immediately. Human forces will oversee the transition to ensure their freedom is respected." The Vorthak commander's shoulders sagged as he realized the full scope of his defeat. Not only had his empire been crushed, but its entire legacy of conquest was being dismantled. Worlds that had been under Vorthak rule for generations would now be free to govern themselves. "You could have enslaved us," Korthak said quietly. "Your forces are more than capable of occupying our worlds, ruling our people. Instead, you offer terms that allow us to maintain our dignity." "Why?" Chen considered the question. "Because that's not who we are, War Master. Humans don't conquer for the sake of conquest. We fight when we're threatened, we protect what's ours, and we defend those who can't defend themselves. But we don't build empires on the suffering of others." She gestured toward the window, where Vorthak civilians could be seen going about their daily lives. "Your people aren't our enemies. They never were. You made the mistake of attacking our families, and you paid the price for that decision. But now it's over. Now we move forward." Korthak stared at her for a long moment, then performed something Chen had never seen before, a Vorthak gesture of deep respect, normally reserved for the most honored elders of their species. "I understand now," he said. "This is why your species is so dangerous. Not because you are strong, but because you are wise. You could destroy us completely, but you choose not to. You defeat us so thoroughly that resistance becomes impossible, then offer terms that preserve our honor." Chen nodded. "Strength without wisdom is just brutality, War Master. Humanity learned that lesson a long time ago." The formal ceremony concluded with representatives from the 47 liberated species bearing witness to the documents. As Chen walked back through the embassy, she reflected on the broader implications of what had just occurred. News of the Vorthak Empire's defeat was spreading across the galaxy at light speed. Every species, from the most primitive to the most advanced, was learning that humanity possessed military capabilities far beyond what anyone had suspected. More importantly, they were learning that humans use that power with restraint and wisdom. "Admiral," Captain Santos said as they reached Chen's office, "we're receiving communication requests from over 30 different species. Everyone wants to establish diplomatic relations with humanity." Chen wasn't surprised. The galactic political landscape had just shifted dramatically. The Vorthak Empire, which had been a regional power for 3 centuries, had been defeated so completely that it would never be a threat to anyone again. Meanwhile, Humanity had revealed itself as the dominant military force in known space. Schedule meetings with all of them, Chen decided, but make it clear that humanity's primary interest is peaceful coexistence. We're not looking to build an empire or dominate other species. Dr. Hawkins appeared in the doorway, carrying a datapad filled with psychological analyses. Admiral, I've been reviewing the galactic response to our victory. The reaction is fascinating from a xenopsychological perspective. How so? Most species are interpreting our restrained response as evidence of even greater hidden strength, Hawkins explained. The logic is simple. Only a species with overwhelming military superiority could afford to be so merciful to defeated enemies. Chen smiled at the irony. By showing mercy to the Vorthak, humanity had actually enhanced its reputation for dangerous capabilities. Every species in the galaxy was now wondering what other surprises humans might have in store. There's something else, Hawkins continued. We're seeing a phenomenon that xenopsychologists call apex submission. Species that previously considered themselves dominant predators are actively seeking protective relationships with humanity, meaning they want to be our allies before we decide they're our enemies. The galaxy is essentially reorganizing itself around human military power, even though we've never threatened anyone who didn't attack us first. Chen walked to her office window, looking out at the Vorthak homeworld where construction crews were already rebuilding what the brief war had damaged. In the distance, human and Vorthak engineers worked side by side to repair infrastructure, a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. Captain Santos, she said finally, send a message to Earth. Tell Admiral Rodriguez that Operation Dragon's Wake is complete. The galaxy now understands the consequences of attacking human civilians. And the Vorthak Empire. Chen turned back to her staff, her blue eyes carrying the satisfaction of a job well done. The Vorthak Empire is learning to live in a galaxy where humanity exists. They attacked our colonies thinking we were weak prey. Instead, they discovered that humans are the apex predators they never saw coming. She looked at the surrender documents on her desk. Formal recognition of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Let this be a lesson to every species out there. Humans can be the best friends you'll ever have or the worst enemy you'll ever face. The choice is always theirs to make. Outside the window, Vorthak children played in parks that would have been bombing sites if their leaders had been wiser. Human medical teams worked in Vorthak hospitals, healing wounds from a war that never should have happened. And across the galaxy, dozens of species were sending diplomatic envoys to establish relationships with the humans, who had just demonstrated that mercy and strength were not mutually exclusive. The dragon had awakened, shown its power, and then chosen to sleep again. But the galaxy would never forget the lesson it had learned about what happened when you stirred humanity's protective fury. Never attack human children. The consequences were more than any empire could survive. And somewhere in human space, on a rebuilt world called New Sacramento, families were returning to their homes under the protection of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. A force that fought not for conquest, but for the simple right of human children to grow up safe among the stars.